What's up, what's up? This is Mike with Beats and Vinyl. Hope everyone is doing well. It is now, we're coming into the tail end of August, man. The summer has kind of whizzed by and we're getting into the fall months, man. So I hope everyone's had a good summer so far. I hope you've been buying good music, playing good music, enjoying your family, enjoying your summer. I'll be honest, I haven't brought a lot of music. I'll be real, life has just been kind of lifing, man. You know what I mean? So I haven't had the budget to buy like I want to buy. But hey, that's not a story for right now. You know, we just keep things positive. But what I wanted to do is just start to kind of highlighting certain things from my stash. And I said, what better way to highlight something than to start with an album that I've always enjoyed. But before I say that, please, if you're new, like, share, subscribe. Hey, we're just getting this thing started. I want to get 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I think that's doable. So I need your help. You know I have a lot of people in my Facebook community. We got about 11K over there. So if you got some people from there, please join on and like. I'm definitely going to start putting a lot more content out here. So with that being said, the album that I wanted to talk about is this. The Brothers Johnson, look out for number one. This debuted 50 years ago, 1976. It's basically Brother George and Brother Lewis. George played guitar, and Lewis became one of the most sought after bassists in the world. I'm not saying in the States, I mean in the world. He became that guy. His signature sound became something that was so recognizable. You could pick it out from in jazz records. He played with Michael McDonald. He definitely played with Quincy Jones. He was definitely a legend. But these guys got started in Los Angeles. They were children and they played around their little local communities. You know, George was obviously a guitar player, Lewis on the bass, and they had a brother, I think his name was Tommy. Tommy played drums. So they had a little trio and they played around town and they started to get really, really good. And they got so good, they began to tour with major acts. And one of those acts was a gentleman named Billy Preston, who was also a child prodigy on the organ. And they began to tour in the very early 70s. And legend has it is that George and Lewis were auditioning to get a part of Stevie Wonder's band called Wonder Love. And during the wait around period, they were at a studio called Record Plant. I think it was in Los Angeles. And they were waiting their turn, I believe. And they were in another studio. And they were just in there practicing and playing. And they were just playing phenomenal. And what happened, Quincy Jones happened to be in the studio and heard it. And he said, who are these guys? And I believe Stevie was looking to bring them on to be with Wonder Love. And Quincy said, nah, man, they got to come with me. They got to come on with me, man. And Stevie, being the awesome cat that he was and that he still is, he gave him the blessing. And Quincy immediately took those guys to the studio, and they made a song called Is It Love That We're Missing? I believe that George wrote it. And they put that song on the album that Quincy had called Mellow Madness. It came out in like 74, maybe 75. And that song became a very huge hit. And I think from that, the momentum became, we got to get these guys in the studio. So by 1976, this bad boy dropped. And the first song was called I'll Be Good to You. And it was a song, again, that the brothers wrote. And it was an incredible song. And it's been redone a few times. But it gave them that signature funk sound. Quincy Jones was coming out of his element, basically working with big bands and doing soundtracks in the 60s. Now he's in the 70s and he's marking his stamp on funk. And classic Quincy, he gets some of the best session musicians. He had Harvey Mason on drums, Dave Grusin on keyboards, horns, strings. that was just Quincy's hook. That's what he always does. He brings some of the best people together. And with these two gentlemen on the guitar and the bass, you couldn't go wrong. So I'll Be Good to You was the first song, and there's some other good songs on there. But the cut that nobody really talks about was a song called Thunder Thumbs and Lightning Licks. And that was an instrumental song that was basically showcasing these guys. And they basically were just taking turns, and Lewis would thump and George would play his solos, and they fused it all together for like 4 or 5 minutes of just some great music. It's just an incredible album. A song that kind of resurfaced later on the Quincy Jones album called Back on the Block was a song called Tomorrow. And if you follow me on my Facebook page or Instagram, I featured it yesterday, depending on when you see this video. I featured it on my reels, and it was an instrumental song. And what happened in 1989, they brought the song back, and the amazing Saida Garrett wrote some lyrics to it, and a young and up-and-coming singer named Tevin Campbell wound up singing the song and basically put lyrics to this great melodic song. But it really was just a jazzy, very smooth and mellow, kind of cool called just Tomorrow, thinking about the new day. And it may not have been a hit, but it was one of those songs that I remember when I was very little, I used to love playing. I just put me in a good space, good frame of mind. But as far as a debut, you couldn't get any better than Quincy Jones and all of the beautiful people that he had working on the album. They redid Come Together by the Beatles. You know, they did that song, and this kicked off a run for those guys, you know. So after this, they had, I think it's called Right on Time, and that's where we had the remake of Shuggie Otis's song, Strawberry Letter 23. And I think that just catapulted them into just the stratosphere. And it's very interesting that these albums became a focal point for another guy that was working on his solo album, and his name was Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson was a huge fan of the Brothers Johnson and Heatwave. And so what happened is when they did Off the Wall, Mike was like, look, I gotta have that Brothers Johnson sound. And who played the bass on the majority of those Michael Jackson records on Off the Wall? Oh, Brother Lewis. So these guys ran out about 4 or 5 records. I think around in the mid 80s they disbanded. I just, you know, what happens, you know, families, they kind of go their separate ways. I think Quincy stopped working with them around 1981, and they had some self-produced records that were really good. They may not have been Quincy, but they were really good. And around the late 80s they disbanded, and I think they just kind of went their separate ways. I think they had some internal issues. George is still with us, but unfortunately, Brother Lewis passed away some years ago. I think he had been sick for a little while, but you know, we definitely honor his memory and keep playing that great music, man. So I wanted to use this as my first installment of what I got back here in the rack and what I wanted to showcase. So again, man, if you haven't got this in the collection, go get it. You know, if you need to just go on Apple and play it, man. This is probably one of the great albums, and I can't believe that it's 50 years old, 1976. So shout out to the Brothers Johnson, and that's gonna do it for me, man. So hey, like, share, subscribe. Mike Beats and Vinyl. I'm doing shorts of me making beats or just playing beats, so you're gonna start seeing that pop up. And I salute you, man. I hope y'all having a good day. God bless. Keep God first in everything that you do. And it's that way we're gonna leave this. Peace.